Warning. The Maverick Marketer is not for the soft, timid, or faint-hearted. If you need permission or seek approval from your mother, spouse, mates in the pub, or anyone else for that matter, this really isn't for you. If any of what you've heard puts you off in the slightest, I advise you not to listen any further. You've been warned. Prepare yourself for the no bullshit, zero fluff. Quick, dirty, and uncensored secrets for any serious coach, trainer, consultant, or speaker who wants to earn more money with less work and fewer headaches. Without having to kiss ass or bend over backwards to please anyone. He's a relentless and fearless renegade who will stop at nothing to reveal the harsh, unforgiving, and brutal truth about what it really takes to succeed in this business. He's a guy people love to hate and hate to love. It's your host, Drew Edwards. The Maverick Marketer is unleashed.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of The Maverick Marketer Unleashed. I am joined today by Mike Phipps. Mike, how are you?
I'm very well, Drew, thank you. And thanks very much for inviting me on.
It's not a problem. Thanks for coming. Just for anyone who doesn't already know of you, can you give us sort of the brief intro into your background and who you are?
I was formerly, between 1990 and 1998, I was the head of leadership and management development at a business called Virgin R Price, which is all of the retail music stores coming together. And if you had the title of manager in your job description somewhere, whether you were working in a store or working at the head office or somewhere else, it was my job to look after your learning and development.
Okay.
And I left that in 1998 because, well, frankly, I got bored working for the same company for a long time, and I wanted to work with other people, so I became an independent trainer, consultant, and coach.
Awesome.
And I've been doing that successfully since 1998.
Awesome. Great. So, tell me a bit more about that. So, you've been doing it since 1998. Can you tell me about your business and what you do now and who you help?
Of course, yeah. My business is in parts. The first thing I do is that I trade as a company called Politics at Work, which is, and the main target market for that are talent development managers. Because if you talk to those people, a lot of the time they'll spend a huge amount of time recruiting the very best top talent that they can find. But unfortunately, far too many of them walk out the door at the end of the first year or at the end of the second year.
Yeah.
And if you look at the exit interview results for those, a lot of the brightest young people going into organisations, whilst they've got all the technical skills, they often lack the sort of political savvy or the ability to influence things in the correct way. So very simply, Drew, the first part of my business is helping talent development managers to help their people to be more politically savvy and to be more successful.
Okay, awesome.
The other thing that I do, and this is a new part of my business which came about completely by accident, is that I now run something called stylequestionnaire.com.
Okay.
And that is a very simple but very powerful way of getting line managers who are sending people on training programs to actually talk to them, to let them know about why they're going, what they're expected to learn, and how it fits into their development plan. And I do that very simply by a very simple online questionnaire that gives the learner who's going on the course, whether it be influencing skills or negotiation skills or whatever, they answer the questionnaire very simply, they get an instant report, and they share that with their line manager. And you know what, Drew? We're getting about a 95 to 96% success rate on our courses at the moment of people who have actually had that conversation. Awesome. And it is awesome, yeah. And you know what? It came about completely accidentally because of a piece of client work that I was doing. And the client had seen my influencing skills questionnaire, and she said, why don't we send this out as pre-work and get the managers to actually talk to their people about it? And it was one of those rare moments where you think, yes, of course, why didn't I think of that? And so we're now building a quite a successful business around pre-workshop questionnaires. So we've got influencing skills, we've got negotiation skills, and we've got a couple of others coming along. And indeed, if you're listening to this now, anybody on the podcast listening to this now, if you have particular ideas for particular questionnaires that you'd like to see, then get in touch at the end of the program.
Awesome. Great.
Sorry about that, Drew. There's a little bit of a plug there, but hey.
No, I get that's absolutely fine. It sounds really interesting. I know definitely a lot of trainers could benefit from that. I want to come back and ask you more about that later.
Of course.
But before we do, can you tell us a bit more about exactly how you got into the industry? Why did you decide to become a trainer in the first place?
Right, I was an area manager for Our Price. You remember the old record shops that you used to go into in the 1980s?
I don't.
You don't. You're far too young. How dare you? Right. Well, I'm hopefully that there might be a couple of people out there listening that might have bought a record from Our Price back in those days. And I was a moderately successful manager there. I wasn't a particularly great retailer. And I knew I really wasn't getting the best out of myself. And it certainly wasn't hitting any kind of career goals. But the one thing I was good at was recruiting really good people and training people really effectively. And the owners of Our Price turned up in my store one day and said, "We're starting a training team." And I said, "Oh, great. Good luck with that." And they went, No, we're starting a training team and you're it." Because they really didn't have anything in place around that sort of time. And we gradually built up I literally moved from being serving customers behind the counter one day into leading, running a training team and a training department the day after. It was quite a step change. And it's one of those weird things where I came away thinking, I wonder if I can do this. I don't know anything about training. So my first few years were very much learning on the hoof through trial and error. I certainly got a lot of things wrong, Drew. And do you know what? I ought to probably go back to those people that were in my very first training groups and apologise to them, because I just didn't know what I was doing, fella. I probably did more damage than anything else, Hey-ho. So that's how I got into it.
Okay, awesome. I mean, again, you mentioned there that you'd done a lot of things wrong when you were first starting out. Can you sort of share with us some of the biggest mistakes that you've made in your business, and more importantly, how you sort of overcame them?
In my business, yes. When I first became self-employed, when I first became an independent, I had this naive idea that because I was a pretty good trainer, and I thought that by then, the industry would come flocking to my door, and that I would have I'd have unlimited amounts of work just by going to a few networking meetings and giving my business card to people. And of course, it turned out to be a complete fantasy on my part. Yeah. And I think I completely underestimated that. What I learned, I think, in that first year was there's a big difference between doing the work and doing the work to get you the work. And I was good at the doing the work bit, but I had completely underestimated how difficult it was to be able to get the work in the first place, and how much time and energy I was going to have to spend on that.
Yeah. Yeah, again, it's something that I know a lot of people listening to this can relate to. You sort of you get people entering the industry being good at what they do. So they're a good coach, they're a good trainer, they're a good consultant. They always get good results for their clients, but they sort of underestimate the amount of work, the amount of energy, the amount of knowledge and skill that it would take to actually bring clients on in the first place.
Yeah, thanks for that.
So I mean,
and around that time, my wife became pregnant with our first child as well. So things were very dicey for those first few years. It's like, and you know what? That was a big motivator. It's like, right, I'm going to have to get off my arse and actually go and get something, make this happen.
Awesome. So what did you do exactly when you say make this happen? What did you go out and do?
Well, the first thing I did was to take the easy route, which is to sign up with a few associate agencies and stuff, because I thought, well, at least I can get some. It's not promoting my brand and it's not promoting me particularly, but at least it's putting some food on the table, Yeah. And I started doing a lot of networking meetings, and then I got really lucky, because I got some work with a large insurance company around it, and it's where this idea for politics at work first came from. Because they were saying, look, our talented people, they don't understand the politics. Can you come and help us? And I started, and I wrote, a 2-day influencing skills workshop, which is based around culture and political skills for them. It was a big success. And once I started talking to people about that, people got more and more interested. And that led on to offers to talk at places like the London Business School, various networking events, Institute of Directors. I then had Capstone Books, the book publishers. They came after me, and I did a book with them, and it started to kind of snowball from there. And I discovered that actually, once people could get over the scary politics word, people would start to appreciate what I had to offer. And just having a name for your business like Politics at Work, it's kind of edgy and a little bit difficult for clients to buy, but they get it straight away. And And it became a really good marketing platform for me, Drew, because it meant that I was able to go out to places and talk, get in front of people and talk about what I did.
Awesome.
I would recommend to people, anybody listening to this that's starting out, find places where you can talk, to groups of people about what it is that you do. In the early days, that made us the single biggest sort of platform, because one of the great things, Drew, is when you get it right, you get paid for marketing yourself. So
yeah.
I get asked to do a speaking engagement in an evening somewhere. I get a fee for that, and then at the end of it, people come up and say, "Here's my card. Can you call me? And I need to talk to you about X, Y, and Z." So it's one of those double wins,
Awesome. Brilliant. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Mike, tell me, just to break up the interview a bit, tell me something about you that a lot of people don't know. So an interesting or funny story or fact.
Right. In the last few years, I'm a songwriter.
Oh wow. Okay.
And I'm not in a band, but I write songs for a band, and it's a band called The Reform Club. Awesome. And they're not exactly famous, but they are infamous in some respects, because the lead singer in that group is a guy called Norman Baker, who until the last election was the Home Office Minister for Justice and Law and Order. So he was working with Theresa May. So he's the lead singer in the group, and I was the writer. And it meant that because he was such a high-profile person, the two albums that I wrote for them got quite a lot of press and quite a lot of publicity, and we were on TV, did all sorts of different exciting things. So,
wow, awesome!
Something that not many people will probably know. And I'm a bit ambivalent about sharing it with my clients, because if they're, depending on their politics, they either think that's a really good thing or a really
yeah. So I mean, how did you get into that? It's just...
Well, because when I left school, I had no qualifications or anything. I just wanted to play the guitar and wanted to write songs. So I did that for a couple of years, until eventually my dad had the difficult conversation with me, which is either you go and get a proper job or we're chucking you out.
Yeah.
So I thought I better go and get a job. Yeah. And that led me into selling records, which eventually by chance led me into training. And it leads me to where I am now. And you know what, Drew, I'd like to say that there was a nice, clear career plan behind all of this, but actually a lot of it was accidental, and a lot of it was about hard work and being in the right place at the right time. So it just goes to show, doesn't it?
Brilliant. Good stuff. Okay, so I want to sort of come back to the style questionnaire that you mentioned earlier. Because as I said before, I think it's something that a lot of people can benefit from. But for anyone listening to this, what problem does it solve? If I'm a trainer listening to this right now, what problem will your style questionnaire solve for me?
Well, it does several things for you. The first one is that if you're a trainer and you know that the client has asked you, or has said as part of the design, that the line manager needs to talk to the learner before they come on the program, you'll probably know as a trainer that that's a very difficult thing to influence if you're external to the organization. Yeah. Secondly, even if you're a trainer within the organization, it's still very difficult. In fact, I think it's increasingly difficult now to get people to get line managers to give up the time to talk to their people about, hey, Drew, I'm sending you on this course, and the reason I'm sending you on this course is because of this, this, and this, and I want you to pay particular attention and come back with these ideas, all right?
Yeah.
Now, my experience is that those conversations don't happen for a couple of reasons, I think. Firstly, line managers are busy people. Of course they are. In fact, so are the learners. So the time pressure is always there. And we're working in an increasingly globalized matrix environment now. So it may well be that my line manager might be in Singapore, for example. So very difficult to actually engineer that conversation. And you know what, Drew, more recently, what we've been discovering actually is that, particularly from the line managers who read these reports, what they say to me, or rather what they say to their learners is, a lot of the time is, this gives me something to talk about with you. Because line managers, bless them, they're in operations, they're in legal, they're in finance, they've got great technical skills. But it doesn't mean that they're the world's greatest coaches or the world's greatest people to brief people about learning and development. Sometimes they just lack the skills, and that leads them to sabotage or to find other things why they are too busy. Now, what Style Questionnaire does is that it gives people a very quick report with a very high degree of accuracy. It details some text about what their style is like, what their strengths are going to be, but also some development options. And that makes it so easy for the line manager to be interested, and it's so easy for the line manager to find something to talk about. Even if you're in different countries, you can still both look at that report and have a quick chat over the phone or over Skype or something like that.
Yeah.
And so it means that as an external trainer or an internal trainer even, when you get your people into the room at the beginning of the workshop, they are much, much clearer about why they're there and what they're supposed to be getting out of the program, simply because they've had that conversation.
Awesome. Brilliant.
Yeah, we like to think so. I mean,
Yeah.
I did a session with a large oil company recently. There were 22 people in the room and only one. And I said, okay, who had the conversation with their line manager about their report? And everybody except for one hand went up. And the only reason that hand didn't go up is because the line manager had been on maternity.
Oh, so they actually couldn't have the conversation anyway.
They just couldn't actually physically have the conversation because their line manager wasn't available. But it wasn't for the, it wasn't, nobody lacked enthusiasm. The other thing that happens, Drew, of course, with this is that people get a report before they come on the workshop. And sometimes those reports, sometimes people have very low self-awareness. And so they'll read that report and think, well, I'm not sure that's really me. It doesn't sound like me. And it's wonderful as a trainer watching people as you work your way through the material, whether it's negotiation skills or influencing skills or whatever else, people gradually getting that increase, thinking, oh God, yeah, this is like me actually. Yeah, I really do need to pay attention to this. I really do need to learn this, because actually, whilst I've looked at that report and I felt uncomfortable about it, or I dismissed it, or I just said, oh, that's just a Mickey Mouse report, forget it. Actually, what I'm learning here now is that actually I really do need to do something about this. So it really helps to raise, for the learners, it really raises their awareness about what might be what might be happening. So, indeed, you know what, Drew? But one of the very first time we ever ran a workshop with one of the style questionnaires, I had this German guy, lovely guy. I think it's about 8 feet tall, and he came charged up to me at the front of the room, and he said, I need to talk to you about this report. He said, it's rubbish. It's not like me at all. And I remember thinking, this is the very first time we've used this questionnaire. And here I am, I've got this big angry German man telling me that the report is rubbish. And you can imagine how that affected my self-confidence going into the course. But at the end of 3 days, he was like, he was completely lovely about it. He said, I really, this is me actually, and I really do need to think about it. Because one of the things in his report was that he confronts people very openly and sometimes too aggressively. What do you think of me?
You're listening to Maverick Marketer Unleashed podcast. For show notes, additional resources, and podcast updates, head over to www.maverickmarketerunleashed.com.
Awesome.
But they say never argue with an angry man, so I didn't argue with him. I just waited until, let the program design go with the flow and just see if he can get to it.
Yeah.
It was great.
Probably a smart thing to do, considering he was 8 foot tall, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I might have exaggerated that last bit.
So, I mean, you're finding that when people take the survey that they're more engaged in the training course? Is that right?
Well, they know why they're there, but they've also, because the second page of the report actually gives them about 8 or 9 limitations that are within their style, so they know what to look out for. So when you give them particular models around influencing or particular ideas about influencing, they are primed to be aware of those sections, to pay more attention to them.
Awesome. Great stuff. And I mean, you mentioned at the beginning, something you said was if you've got any ideas for other questionnaires or surveys that you want doing, get in touch. So are these completely customizable? So if I work in a particular area, you can create, can you create one for my business?
It's not so much that I create one for your business, unless you are a trainer who is specialising in particular areas. Now, I specialise in influence and negotiation.
Yeah.
And so, those were the first 2 things that I built, and they've been very successful. But what we're looking to do now is that I'm aware that there are a few other trainers that have approached me and said, could you do one for coaching skills? So what am I like as a coach? Or what am I like as a mentor? And I'm talking with another company about a sales one at the moment, which is what am I like as a sales, what's my selling style like? Now, these are all very exciting ideas. So these are on the drawing board. So, and it's why I wanted to come on this podcast today, Drew. So, if you're out there listening to this and you are a trainer with specific skills that you're training and you think that these ideas are right for you, let me know what skill area you're working in, and we can have a chat about potentially changing the reports around so that they work for your business as well as mine, because it's something that I've seen work so powerfully And it's why I wanted to come on this podcast and share this idea with you. But also, what I wanted to get back from it was ideas about other questionnaires that we could build, or other reports that we could do based around this questionnaire.
Awesome.
So if you're out there, call me, call Drew, get in touch. I'm sure that Drew will be putting an email address or two or a contact detail up there at the end of this. So I would love to hear from people because it would really help me out.
Good stuff. Brilliant. Great stuff. So, again, coming away from the style questionnaires now, though, what if you think back to? So I'm going to ask you two questions here. When you first started out, what book did you read that had sort of the biggest influence in terms of where you are now?
Only one, really.
Okay, you can. I mean, if there's several, you can have several. But,
right. Well, for the politics at work business that I have, I would say Eric Byrne, Games That People Play, was the most important book that I read. Not because I understand it, because I kind of get it. I have a background in transactional analysis, and that was such an important book back in its day. But what that book did was while I was doing some transactional analysis training, I was reading that book, and I suddenly thought, what if we could do office politics games that people play? And that created and that was responsible for creating my first book, my second book, which is out on June the 11th, and it was responsible for giving me this whole concept around about political tactics that people use in the workplace, but more importantly, what can you do to challenge that with integrity? How can you be more influential? How can you manage those difficult stakeholders who are playing games with you? Yeah. But do more than just be aware of them, actually do something about it so that you can make it more of a win-win situation. And if you can't make it win-win, how can you just defend yourself? And so, yeah, Eric Byrne, Games People Play, I'd go for. This is like Desert Island Discs or something.
Awesome. And what about a book you read more recently that's had a big impact on your business?
Well, I would say anything by Peter Block, the American writer. I avidly read all of his books, and I've really enjoyed. I've enjoyed everything that he does. Actually, I remember when I was doing my training qualifications back in the early 1990s. I was given a copy of The Empowered Manager by Peter Block, and it was one of those books he has this amazing habit or amazing knack, and I wish I had it, which is making really complex things incredibly simple. He just is able to break those things down, and he doesn't write like your typical brash American. He writes in a very English American style, and I think his ideas are just so powerful and so easy to get. So yeah, Peter Block for me.
Awesome, great stuff. And Mike, earlier on in this interview, you mentioned some of the mistakes that you made in your business when you first started out. What are some of the mistakes that you see being made by other coaches, trainers, consultants, and speakers?
Other mistakes. Certainly the marketing piece is... I don't do a lot of agency work anymore. I've been lucky enough to build up enough platforms to my business not to really do a lot of that. Yeah. But I remember at my time working with... And I'm on the few occasions where I would work with co-trainers, I would see them... I would be disappointed by... I was disappointed by myself, firstly. But I was also disappointed with them, thinking, why have we left the corporate world and jobs where we were dependent on bosses and everything else? Why did we become independent if we're now becoming dependent on these agencies to find us work? What is the point of that? It just seemed to me like, out of the frying pan into the fire, which is a terrible way of putting it. But it just seemed to be pointless. It's like you're not growing your business, you're not growing your personal brand anymore. And I think that there are still too many trainers potentially who are not thinking about their presence in the marketplace, their routes to market, the way that they present themselves, their own personal brand. I know personal brand is one of those kind of cliches, but it's true.
Yeah.
My advice would be wean yourself off the agencies. Yeah, it's fine to do a bit of agency work in, say, July, when maybe a lot of the corporates are on holiday, etc. But really, you should be forging out and doing more independently. And so things, the sort of services that you offer, Drew, a lot of the time about helping trainers to actually find routes to market and to become more aware of these kind of things, I've learned to my cost are actually very important.
Awesome. Good stuff. Okay, so I mean, you sort of touched on it there, but if you could change one thing about the industry, what would it be?
Change one thing about the industry?
Yeah.
Oh dear. um,
So what would you want to see more of? What would you want to see less of?
I'm skeptical about a lot of the e-learning stuff that I see. I think there is a place for e-learning and online stuff. I'm just not convinced that it's being done terribly well at the moment. And for the future, I would like to see e-learning becoming as brain friendly as some of the stuff that we do, as some of the stuff that we do actually in the training room.
Yeah.
The industry's changed dramatically since I moved into it. In the 1980s, people were still throwing cush balls around and stuff like that. I think there is a place for cush balls. I really do. But we've got much more sophisticated, I think, as an industry. And I think independent coaches and consultants and trainers have been a big part of that, where we've been able to bring new ideas and brain-friendly ways of learning into what are normally traditionally boring training rooms. And I see some good things in the e-learning world, but I think it has some catching up to do. And again, I think the e-learning world suffers from this disconnect between the learner and the rest of the organization. So it's too easy at the moment for line managers just to say, just go off and do this open learning program and then you'll know all about it. Not a problem. And for the line manager, I think it's a dangerous tick in a box for a line manager to do, because they could turn around and say, well, we gave you all the training. Why can't you do it? And I think that there's a way to go with e-learning yet in terms of getting it more, making line managers more responsible with it, making learners more engaged in that process, and for e-learning packages to become that much more exciting and more varied. I still think there's a way to go with this, I think that's about it. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, that was a bit of a rag-bag answer at the end there.
No, it's absolutely fine.
Yeah, good. Okay.
Valid points. Okay, so in your business, what's been the biggest breakthrough moment over the past 12 months?
Speaking at the London Business School alumni event.
Okay.
Last January. It was last January, so I'm cheating a little bit here. But they booked me the year before, and we had in a typical London Business School lecture theatre for 80, and it holds 80 people, and they had 120 people turn up, and there were people sitting on the steps, on the floor at the front, and all the rest of it. And it was overwhelming. People were so interested in the whole topic around politics at work. And a big high for me was being rebooked again the year after, and we had just under 300 people in a room that was fit for purpose. And I got a lot of business from that event. I got well paid to do it, and I got a lot of business as a result of it.
Brilliant.
So it was I remember coming away from that, feeling, wow, that was a career high. Frankly, it was really, really exciting to do.
Awesome. Brilliant.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Okay, and what about the next 12 months? Where do you see your business going? What goals do you have? What direction do you want to take your business in?
Well, my business is in those two parts. So I do politics at work, where I help talent development managers, and that is a business that's been up and running. And it has, like I say, I have a new book coming out to promote that business. That's out in June the 10th, June the 11th.
Do you have a title for that yet?
And the title for that is 21 Dirty Tricks at Work Again.
Awesome.
So this is the sequel to the first book, which was 21 Dirty Tricks at Work.
Yeah.
This one's less wordy, and it's easier to get to the stuff that matters this time around. It's got a slightly smaller word count. So I think people will enjoy that. So Politics at Work will continue to build some marketing around the books, some marketing and some more speaking engagements. But I'm putting a lot of energy and effort into the STAR questionnaire business, which is why I want people to get in touch and to talk. If if they've got ideas for subjects that they want to see questionnaires built around, particularly if they can use them, then I want to really put some effort and energy into this, because you know what, Drew? It's really exciting when you accidentally discover a new product.
Yeah.
But not just a new product that you think, oh, well, isn't this a good idea? But you get a product which has come from a client need. The client came to me with a problem and said, couldn't we do it like this? And it was one of those, well, yes, of course we could. Wow, why didn't I think of that? And so as a new part of business, I think it's very exciting, and I'm looking forward to helping both internal and external trainers really get to make these conversations with their line managers happen. It's something that's you and I have had several conversations, and I'm having to work really hard today to keep my enthusiasm down and to talk at a very slow pace because I do get very carried away with the whole style questionnaire thing, because the results it's getting people I'm really excited by that. Really excited.
Awesome. Brilliant. Mike, again, thanks for coming on the show. Where can our listeners go to find out more about what you do?
You can go to www.politicsatwork.com. That will give you an insight into the influencing skills part of my business. That's a very easy way of getting in contact with me. Or you can contact me through info@stylequestionnaire.com. And then we can exchange ideas about particular reports that you might like to see being created to help you with your training.
Brilliant.
And if you have any trouble with those, then you can write to me directly at mike.phipps, Phipps, at politicsatwork.com.
Awesome. Good stuff. And are you on LinkedIn at all?
Certainly am. I'm on LinkedIn. It's very easy to find me on there.
Awesome. Great stuff. Again, Mike, thanks for coming on the show. I've really enjoyed sort of your insights into the industry and hearing about your style questionnaire. Again, really enjoyed it.
Drew, thank you very much for this. It's really exciting to kind of share these good news messages. And again, people, if you're out there with a good idea for kinds of reports that you want, get in touch. Drew, thanks very much.
Good stuff, no problem. I'll speak with you again soon. Until then, take care, take action, and be relentless.
Show notes, additional resources, and podcast updates, head over to www.maverickmarketerunleashed.com.